So team, next session is about export, import, moving, copying, backup, restore. So I would like to demonstrate before I proceed. Let me drop few databases which I created for the purpose of this demonstration only. Close existing connections and drop the database. I'm dropping the databases, close existing connection, drop the database. It's so easy. Test DB, delete, close existing connection, drop the database. So there are so many databases which I created, so I'm dropping them. Now this is the database Adventure Works. First let's understand what all options. Under tasks we have a lot of options here. Detach, take offline, then backup, restore and copy. In order to copy the database, remember agent service must be running. Otherwise, you will not be able to copy. And the destination directory where you want to copy, the agent should have permission on that directory where the data is moved. The default permission, even the default location, agent does not have permission on that directory. So wherever, whether you are backing up or restoring, whatever you are performing, wherever you want to move the data, the agent should have permission on that directory. How do I identify that? First, let's go to that only. Let's check that configuration assistant and see the agent user ID through which the service is running. So this is agent. If you go to the properties, you will see the username. So take this username because this should be the owner or should have right permission on the directory for moving it. As an example, I'm going to C drive in program files, and in fact let me create a directory here. Where do I create? I create here only. Okay, in C drive, and let me take this data directory itself. So I want to change permissions of this directory so that I can take the backup here, or I can copy the directory, move the directory, or move the data here. So I need to go to the security under permissions, and then I need to edit the permissions. I need to add, and I need to select the username, check name. It will show you the, you have to type the full name, then only it will be able to search. SQL Server Agent, select it and give right permission to it. So otherwise you will feel the problem, you will face the problem will be related to the permission, security, not able to copy. All right. In fact, if I go to this particular directory also, Microsoft SQL Server, this directory MSSQL, under that data, the backup, this directory also should have the right permission for the agent if you are taking the backup on in this directory itself. Generally a backup directory is backup directory, and this directory also should have permission, show more options and assign the permission security here also, that user should have permission on this directory. Continue, add, process is same. So add permission, select a principal, search for it, check name, okay, and then allow modify permission to it. So agent is required to have permission on specific directory, particularly whenever you are moving or copying the files. Remember to don't forget to give the right permission to the folder. Then proceed with the steps. So first step is check the permissions on the destination directory wherever you want to write through the SQL Server Management Studio, which will pass on the job to the agent. So let's first try to copy the database. Copy database. Welcome to copy database wizard. Source server is Windows authentication you are using. Destination server, let's take it to the remote server because our remote server is also working. And if I can type the username, because this is destination server, can be a local server, can be a remote server. This is not only copying the data to the local server but also to the remote machine. So it may be a local machine also, it may be a remote machine also. I'm trying to copy it to the current system only right now. and then use detach and attach method, or you can use SQL management object method. I'm using detach and attach method, and this is the database which I want to copy, Adventure Works. So select the data which you would like to move or copy. Quite straightforward, and give a new name to the database. Let's say Adventure Works new. This is going to be the new name. And where the files of this would be located, you can specify the path, specify the directory and the new location if you want destination folder where you want to move them. So change these directories if you want the directory and file destination folder. All right, I'm selecting the default one. In my case, I remember earlier when I tried for the first time, I faced the permission related issue. When I assign the permission to this user agent and give right permission to that user, I could execute that. So click on next, run immediately, and database will be, this will be the summary of the job which agent will be running. So click on finish. I was failing in the last step earlier. After assigning permissions to the folder, it worked well. I need to check where it is copying. If the folder is different, it will not work. If the folder is right, which has the right permission, it will work without any problem. So the database is copied. Now you refresh it, you will see another database, Adventure Works database, coming up here. Let me disconnect and connect again. I should be able to see the database. Yes, it is there. Adventure Works new. So don't panic if you don't see in the first attempt. You refresh or disconnect and connect again. No big deal. Now let's talk about the another feature here. There's another feature in the bin directory. That's a very interesting feature. I'm going to take you to the directory directly. The program is not available from the program files. So I'm going to take you to the directory directly. Here under DTS, I repeat, under Microsoft SQL Server 150 DTS, in the bin folder, there's a file called DTSWizard. If you recollect, I told you that we used to have data transform services, data transfer services, right from Windows 2008 version, even before that to Windows 2005. Same utility is still available, and they have not removed it yet, and that is called DTS Wizard. So DTS Wizard is the name. Let me find out. DTS Wizard. Yep, DTS Wizard. Double click on DTS Wizard. This process, this is also data transfer wizard. This is actually what this utility is. This utility is for import and export wizard. It can export the data from one server to another server directly. In fact, it gives you many features wherein you can do the integration kind of work also. In between, you can have logic also. This is very old utility where it is comparable with Oracle Integration Cloud, something similar to that, I must say. Let's go through this process as well. So data source, and see the from where you can pull. You can pull the data from anywhere. So we are using SQL Server Native Client. Point to be noted. SQL Server Native Client. It means the native client service in the configuration manager must be running. Never forget that. And you see that here. In the configuration assistant, we have a native client service. And native client is enabled 64 4-bit. You see this is I'm talking about native client 11 configuration tool. So this must be configured, and we already have it. So server name is local Windows authentication. We can use same authentication method. Database you want to export. Let's select same database this time also. Then go to the next target destination where you want to export it. You want to take it to Microsoft Access or Excel or OLDB driver. Where you want to take it, you select. These are the target possibilities. So select same target in our case for the time being, and the database, we want a new database to be created here. Similar wizard but slightly different. Let's say Oracle DB. So this is going to be Oracle DB. I'm creating a new database. and no growth allowed, growth by percentage, same. If you look at it, is similar to the original screen of database creation wizard. And then next, copy data from one or more tables or view. This is the fine grained part I was referring to. It is not only data base movement, but it is much more than that. If you noticed, target can be anything. A lot of targets possibilities were there. Destination can be anything. A lot of possibilities were there. And now the mapping part. I don't want to copy all the files, all the tables. I want to copy only selected tables. So copy data from one or more tables or views. So, and you can even write a query to specify the data transfer. And this is what source tables you want to copy. For example, I want to copy selected tables only. Let's say I want to select business type, all right, address, employee. I'm selecting certain tables. Person schema, I'm copying entire person schema. Let's say these tables. Production, I'm not selecting. I'm selecting these specific tables only, and let's select human resource also. I'm copying these two, and I'm not selecting rest all. I'm not taking all the data. I want only this much data to be transferred. You can edit mapping also one to one. The field name, if in the destination the field type is different, you can map that here. You can even edit the SQL part. It will give you much more advanced step. The table which will be created in the destination. You can use auto generate. All right. So it is actually excellent feature. When I compare to other tools, it is one of the old and existing and stable feature which I've been using for past 15-20 years. I have seen this in action. So select the fields, map it, and then go to next. Save this as a package. It is not necessary that you want to execute it right now. Again, SQL Server Integration Services package. So you can save this package also for SQL Server or in the file system. You can save it in the file system also. So I'm not saving it right now. I want to execute it right now. Next and finish. And this will copy selected data, selected tables from the current database to the target database if everything is perfectly fine. Though we may have to look into if there is any error at any stage, we may have to verify, but good luck that everything went very well. Close, check that. You will have another database, disconnect, connect, and verify that you will have another database here which we created. Verify that database is, yeah, it is there, Oracle DB. And if you go to tables, you will see the tables. We have only two schemas here. So export import, the DTS wizard give you more options of selecting features. Then what we have is backup part. Let's check the backup. Again, go to the tasks backup. This is the normal process of moving the data to different location. And this is moving or copying the data. So backup generally offer, we have three types of backup: differential and full backup. If you see, do we have this option file and file group backup? It is disabled. Why I'm not able to do that? Why I don't have a log file backup? Because if I want to take the files backup or file group backup, or I want to backup do the transactional backup, where do that option is? That depends on the recovery model. That depends on the options which you have. So let's stop here, because the recovery model I don't see. It is saying the recovery model is simple. So I don't need transaction backup, transaction log backup I cannot perform. So I need to cancel it. It is not required. This is not what I need. It is not sufficient for me. So I have to go to the database. I'll go to the properties. I'll check the recovery model for the database. So let's check the options and recovery model. So here you'll see the recovery model. You change the recovery model to full and you will get more options. Now if I go to the backup part under tasks and backup and try, now backup, you have the backup, even differential backup and transaction log backup is also possible. And not only that, if you're taking a full backup, then file and file group option is also allowed now. So these extra features are coming because of the recovery model. So select all. Right now I'm selecting all of them, and then destination where you want to copy it. You want to copy it to the disk, file and file group, and copy to the disk. Click OK, and it will be copied. That's how easy it is. Now you can drop it and restore it from the backup. Let's try to understand, communicate, fill it, and drop the database. I'm dropping all the existing databases which I've created now, moving or copying or cloning, and I'm to restore from the backup. This I'm keeping it. So database. Now go to the device and you select the device. So this is the backup we have just now taken. You see 18th 21 of today's date, 18 21 22. This backup, I think this is the latest backup which we can see here. And select the backup from the default directory and restore it. Successfully restored. So these are backup, restore, then detach and attach. Let's look at that also. Detach, where we have a detach option. Detach will disconnect it, actually disconnect from the server. It is kind of putting it offline in single user mode, or probably in Oracle we have something called like database mounted but not open. Connections are remember, there's one stage in Oracle where connections are not allowed, but database is okay. Detach will remove it, drop connections, update statistics, and then detach it. So this will detach. It does not mean the database is not available. You will see that it is detached, but it will not be able to work. Refresh and you will see that. Now this is single user mode. It is not usable now. In order to work with it, you need to attach it. So task and attach it. So that's a option of attaching. Where is the gone? Database attach. I always forget these simple things. Attach and detach. New query, database. Let me try again. I'll go through this process in that case. Okay, new database, owner DB, options. I always forget. To be honest, I'm not able to recollect where the attach option gone. And I'm figuring out, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to find out where this option. Probably it is a new database option might be there by attaching the one. Yeah, it was there. It was there. Database attach. Here it was there. It was there under databases only. Add, and whatever databases you want to attach, you can attach that. So select the database and then click OK, and it will be attached. In fact, if you want to rename the database, that was one of the dialog box which was shown when you were copying the database. This attach and detach method can also be changed, can be used to rename the database, because now you can change the database name as well. All right, that is the advantage here. So when you select this database file location and everything, this is the same method which can also be used to rename the database. So if you rename it, it will create a new database. Why I'm not able to? Earlier I used to see that attach at, yeah, this one. Attach as, let's say, Adventure W Oracle. So I'm renaming it. Files are not renamed. The database will be different. The same method, if you go back to the dialog box, that showed that while copying the database, you can use the same method, attach and detach, which was there. Let me show you once again. Right click, tasks, copy database. It was shown here which method you want to use, attach, detach, or what. Attach and detach. So this method actually can be used to copy the database, and which was used. So we can manually also attach, detach, or we can use through this wizard. So copying database, moving database, export, import, backup, restore. This is going to be quite comprehensive, but I will run through the screenshots because you have already seen all the screenshots. So maximum you'll find screenshots in this presentation. Export import data from SQL Server using SQL Server Management Studio. Copying data, copying databases, SQL Server recovery models, database statuses, planning backup strategy, backing up database and transaction logs, using backup options, understanding restore process and restoring databases, advanced restore scenarios, working with point-in-time recovery. Start the SQL Server import export wizard in one of the following ways to import the data from and export the data to any supported data source. That was the interesting point. The DTS wizard gave you multiple options. You can start it from the command line also, you can start from SSMS also, and you can also start the DTS wizard. So in the command line, go to this folder and launch this file, the file which is DTS wizard. And this is the same now screenshot. I'm just running through the same screenshots. First screenshot, you select SQL Server native client. Second screenshot, you specify the details. And then third screenshot. So these were the screenshots which are appearing. Data transfer services, data export import wizard running through DTS. Then specify the tables to copy. You select the tables you copied and you map them, and after that you simply executed the steps. And this was overall quick process using DTS wizard. Then through Management Studio, restoring it, we have the option of restore database or backup database. So if you have the backup, you want to restore it, you can restore it directly. So what file you want to backup or what you want to restore, you can select that and then specify the file where you want to backup. After the file is selected, backup will be created. So backup and restore, this is a restore process. You specify the location. We have done the restoration also, running through the same screenshot which you have seen just now. Database restored successfully will be the last message. Copy database with SQL Server Management Studio. For that, if you notice, the option was under task copy database. Copy database. So select copy database, and after that you run through the process similar to DTS. Copy. So you choose the authentication method, then you select target and destination both. The same dialog box will be displayed twice. First for the server source from where it is to be copied, and second destination where you want to take it, which essentially means if you have achieved the copy or connection to your friend's server, which I have given you the task that yes, I demonstrated, and that was extra work given to you, and therefore what I recommend is you can try copying from remote server to your database to your friend's database, and with a name, just so that you add your friend's name in the destination, in the target, so that your name appears in his server and his name appears on your server in the database list. To copy, if you have achieved that connection part, you can try this copying the database from one server to another. This is going to be interesting for you guys, moving the database in production level scenarios. So if you don't have permissions, this is again, this was the permission issue, and I resolved it by specifying the the ownership or the permissions to the file. So continuous configure the destination database, configure the package, run immediately, and it will be done. If you recollect, that was job failed because of the permission, and that is why I included it in my presentation. I give the demo also, but I included in the permission. So this user, anti-service, this user should have permission on this folder. So go to that folder, go right click on that, go to security tab, under that type this entire name, click on check now. After you click on check now, the name will appear slightly differently, but that is how it is identified, and then give this permission, modify permission to this user. Only then you will be able to copy. And also remember, agent services must be running. Then SQL Server Management Studio. In SQL Server Management Studio, connect to the instance of the SQL, expand the database, right click and point to the task, and then you have this option import and export, which I have demonstrated. Import data, export data. Backup. That was a very quick of copy databases, export database, import a database. Backup part. Backup is a little comprehensive subject. Though it is very easy compared to Oracle here, it's very easy to be honest. The SQL Server, because it's all GUI based, it's all intuitive, quite easy. SQL Server let you backup and restore your databases. Backup and restore components provide an important safeguard for protecting critical data stored in databases. There should be a well-planned strategy for backup restore, which will help against data loss caused by failure. Test your strategy by restoring a set of backups and then recovering your databases to prepare you to respond effectively to a disaster. With a good backup, you can recover from any failure, many type of failure like media failure, user errors, hardware failure, natural disaster. You know, in Oracle we cover a comprehensive subject on this, how to address media failure, how to address user errors, how to address hardware failure or natural disaster. What are the plans? Different, options, different features are available for different scenarios. Data backups. The process of a backup of data can be whole database backup, partial database, or it may be a set of files or file groups, or even the differential transaction log backup. So these possibilities are there: full backup, differential backup, transaction log backup, and file group backup. You can backup any of these things. In Oracle, I think we have one more option in place of extra options which are available for Microsoft SQL Server, and that is incremental, if I'm not wrong. Because I recollect maybe, but I heard of it that incremental, I don't know whether I studied theoretically or it was actually there, incremental backup. Full backup, complete a full backup of the database right up to the point where the database finishes. Backup all tables, indexes, system tables, and database objects in those tables. Differential backup, it creates a backup of changes made to the database since the last full backup. So this is the time and this is the backup. So we take the full backup at this point, and this is the data of the database contents. Now as the time progresses, we continue working with the data, then we keep on adding the data, database size keep on growing. Now incremental backup, as per definition, is backup of these components if you are taking incremental. But if we go to the next time at this point in time, and we say that I don't want incremental backup, I want differential backup. So when was the last full backup was taken? It was taken here. So everything from this point to this point will be backed up, means this component will be backed up, and this is called the differential backup. It does not keep track of individual transactions, so it does not provide the ability to restore to a point in time. That is the drawback of differential backup. Can also back up the transaction logs. In fact, this transaction log backup indirectly play a role in mirroring also. When you want to move the database, uh, that is replication. In MySQL, we use the term replication, which is nothing but first we take the backup, restore at another system, and then we enable transaction log shipping, and then the database is mirrored or copy is created, replicated. Similar process here in SQL Server is called mirroring. That is also possible, which is quite simple to set up. You should have remote access, and if you have remote access, you can mirror your database. First step is, in that case, what is happening is log shipping. So transaction log keeps a log of each transaction, giving a DBA the ability to roll forward or roll back to a specific point in time. When the transaction log is backed up, the log is truncated. Transaction log backups are scheduled in intervals typically 5 to 30 minutes. Backup the transaction since the last full backup, differential backup or transaction log backup. File groups backup is also possible, which we have seen. Allow a user to place tables, indexes, and other database object into a specific database files. Can be backed up and restored individually or in groups. It is useful when time restraints prevent full backup is not possible when you have in the scenario where full backup is not possible, so you can back up specific files and file groups only. How to create a full backup? Full backup is not allowed in explicit or implicit transactions. These are limitations first. Backup created by more recent version of SQL Server cannot be restored in earlier version of SQL Server. Backward compatibility is a challenge. For large databases, consider supplementing full database backup with a series of differential backup plans. That is a backup plan, backup strategy, that when you have a huge databases, in those situations, instead of taking full backup, you create differential backups. Estimate the size of the full backup by using SP space used. This is a stored procedure which will give you the size of your database and backup size possible. By default, every successful backup operation adds an entry in the SQL Server error log and in the system event log. If you backup frequently, suppress backup log entries by using trace flag. You remember I used this term trace flag is very old concept right from beginning. It has been used by Sybase and Microsoft SQL Server both. So this trace flag 3226 is actually going inside that architectural level changes which gives you the error messages and the comprehensive report on that and solution. So if you backup frequently, it suppresses backup log entries by using trace flag 3226 if none of your script depends on those entries. Permissions. Backup database and backup log permissions default to member of sysadmin fixed server role and DB owner and DB backup operator fixed database roles. Ownership and permission problems on the backup device physical file can interfere with the backup operation. SQL Server should read and write to that device. I faced this problem and I included that in my screenshot and I demonstrated this issue of permissions. Generally, this is the problem. So generally, participants come out that Ram, I'm getting error, but missing the step is natural will naturally results into the errors. So don't miss these permission related things and ownership related things and agent running or not running when you are running export import jobs. The account under which SQL Server service runs must have right permission to the backup device. So now this is the interesting point. Agent permission on the directory was for import export. Main server process permission on the directory is by the server process, the account which is running the server service. So expand the server name, expand the database, select the database, right click on the database name on the task and then backup. In the backup database dialog box or the database you want, which you want to backup, in the drop down list which you can change to any other database on the server. In the backup type drop down list, select the backup type. Default is full and differential will not appear. Transaction log backup will not appear. File backup will not appear. File group and file and file group backup will not appear if the recovery mode is not full recovery model. Under the backup component, select the database. In the destination, find out the location where you want to backup. Default is in the same directory on your SQL Server software directory, but the directory name is backup, where it will keep the backup. Though you can configure this separate. It should be separate ideally. It should be separate. It should be on a different media. It should be remote directory, to be honest. And it should be NFS kind of server file system where the database backup is going separately on a remote location safely. That is quite easy because you can simply mount any folder, NFS server folder on the current directory, and then you specify the ownership of this service, and then the instance have the default uh, directory structure which we discussed on day one. So therefore, it is recommended that you keep these logs, backups, and data directory on different devices, different storage devices. You can use backup to drop down list to selected as different device. Select add to add backup objects or destinations. You can also stripe the backup set across multiple files for increased backup speed. To remove a backup destination, select it and remove it. Click OK to start the backup. Restore data backup. Similar process, SSMS, through that SSMS you can do that. Before you can restore a backup or a database under the full or bulk logged recovery model, you need to back up the active transaction log known as tail of log. To restore an encrypted database, you need access to certificate or asymmetric key used to encrypt that database. Without certificate or asymmetric key, you cannot restore that database. Save the certificate used to encrypt the database encryption key for as long as you need to save the backup. Take the backup, select backup type, transaction log. This is transaction log backup. Select the backup component, files or file groups. So this is the backup option under full recovery model. You see the option transaction log and which are taking backup or file group. These options were not visible, not active when you are working with the simple recovery model, not full recovery model. Then specify the file group if you want. Verify the backup. Does not check the consistency of the backup. For that we have the command dbcc check database. Verify the integrity of the database backup and checks for corruption. Make sure all the data in the backup is readable. Restore. Make sure you are using correct backup set. Restore label only. Summarize information about the backup set. Restore headers only. Return information about each item in the backup set, including the order in which backup were made. Restore files only. Return the associated data files in relation to the specific backup device. And these are the database backup restore, the data file restore, and the data page restore. All possibilities are there. Typical sequence: at 8 a.m. you took the backup of the database. In the at 12 noon you back up the transaction log. 4 p.m. you took the transaction log backup. 6 p.m. back up the database. 8 p.m. back up the transaction. What am I trying to convey here is, forget about the duration, the gap. The idea behind this slide is that you divide your job, your backup strategy, plan your strategy in such a manner that you don't take always full backup. You wait for sufficient data, maybe 20% of the data. If the size is, as an example, you are better judge than me because you have been working in production, you know what that strategy should be. Like if I say 1 GB of the database size, okay, the moment it grows 200 MB size extra, take a differential backup. Another 200, take a differential backup. So it is close to 50% of what the actual size is. So then go for a full backup. I mean, this way you know better options. What is the better strategy for backup? This is strategy. This slide is pointing to a plan, not a recommendation that you need to plan. The point in time restore. It allows users to restore to a point before the failure of or corrupt data. It allows user to restore without unwanted data. You can use it through SQL Server Management Studio. Go to the instance, expand the server, expand the database, select the database, right click, task and restore, and then click on database. On the general tab, you specify the source, and the database select the database you want to restore. What is important here is this point, device. Click on browse button, that is this three dots, this button to open select backup device dialog box. In the source device database list box, select the name of the database which should be restored. In the destination, select the database automatically populated with the name of the database to be restored. To change the name of the database, you can enter the new name also. What is important is this one line that is called timeline. Look for this button. This timeline is point in time. It is so visual, so beautiful compared to Oracle or the other databases. I remember we used to specify the timestamp, we used to investigate the logs. Everything is so easy here. You can spread the time. This slider is given for the time. So access backup timeline dialog box. In the restore to selection, click specific date and time. Use either date and time box or slider bar to specify a specific date and time to where the restore should stop, and then click OK. You should use only the selected backups for point in time restore operation. On the options page, in the restore option panel, you can select any of the following option: overwrite, preserve replication settings, and restrict access to restricted restored databases. This is example in created using, to be honest, I created this slide very recently if you look at the date. So simply I generated the script. You know that every dialog box gives you the option of script generation when you are doing an operation, on the same on the right, on the top side, top bar. Restoring file group also similar. Restored by restoring the specified file groups and applying a previous log and next transaction log to bring the database to consistent state. Using a backup to create a new database. Even you can create a new database. If you remember, attach and detach can also be used to create a new database. Similarly, backup and restore can also be used to create a new database. Because if you recollect, there's a dialog box where you are expected to type the name. There you can change the name also. A new database can be created by using the backup from an existing database. This is made possible by using with move statement, which copies the data files and applies them to the new database. That's all for the session. Thank you very much.